Hello, we're ready to sew our block today. The first thing we're going to do for this block is to make some half square triangles. So that means we are going to draw some lines from corner to corner on our pieces of fabric here. And I'm drawing it on the lighter fabric just so I can see it a little bit easier. And I'm using a Frixion pin. This will go away with heat, but it also has a really fine tip. And so when I draw that line next to my ruler, I'm more likely to get it exactly where it needs to be. If it was a thicker tip and I draw the line, it is a wider line, so I can't tell, right where a 1/4 inch away from it is, if it's from the center of the line. So by using a fine tip, you just go right a 1/4 inch away from the line, and it seems to work out best. So I'm going to line it up just a tick. I'll try to move this up so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. I want to line it up so it's exactly in the corner, and then I'm going to back it off just a tick, the width of my pen, so that the line is actually going to be corner to corner. So I'm going to line up the bottom, and then the top got off. Okay, line that up, and then draw the line. Okay, that's a nice thick line, and then we're going to sew on each side of that a 1/4 inch away. I'm actually probably going to do a little bit scant, a little bit closer to the line. That just gives me a little bit more to trim off so that I know I have it the exact size that I need it to be. And let's go ahead and we're going to start stitching. Okay. And then I'm just going to twist this around and go on the other side. So that one's done, and then we're going to line this one up. I've already got a line drawn there, and then we'll start this one. Okay, so we've stitched on both sides of that line, and now let's trim it up and see what we got. Okay, so now we are going to cut right on that line, so corner to corner. Okay, and now we have 2 there, and we're going to trim this one the same way. Okay, and then we're going to press that. And I'm going to go ahead and set my seams, just put my iron on there just for a little bit. And then that Frixion pin will go away with the heat. I'm going to flip these because I want to press towards this darker fabric. And I'm going to kind of give it just a finger press first and then put my iron on it. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so we've got them all pressed, and then now we're going to do our trim down. And there's many different ways you can use this. I'm going to use my block lock ruler. I do like this one. It has this little groove, and it kind of locks up into your seam and holds it in place, and it also kind of orients it so it's exactly on the diagonal, so that I'm not going to make it wonky where I'm losing any of my points that should be right in the corners. So, and then our unit should be slightly oversized. There's just a little bit that I'm going to trim off, and I'm going to go ahead and trim all 4 sides, and then carefully I can rotate this and get this size here. So you can see that's the exact size we need it to be, and I've just got a few scraps that I'm trimming off, not much at all. Now if I took up a bigger seam here, I would have even less to trim off. So if you like to trim a little bit more because you're not so sure about your seam, then go ahead and cut your squares even a little bit bigger. That way you have a little bit more to trim off. So it's up to you how you want to do that. Okay, and then we got another one perfectly sized. And another fun thing that you can do with this ruler is just once you get 2 sides done, turn it, and then since that seam is locked in on that, then you can just trim the other 2 sides. Okay, we're back at the sewing machine, and I have placed all my squares onto a design board so that it looks exactly like I want the block to look. My half square triangles here are oriented in the right direction, and so follow the diagram to get those going. So you've got them in the right place. And then we have just a simple 9 patch that we're going to sew together. So I'll sew these 2 together, these 2, and then we'll go back and add that 3rd one on there. So I'm just going to put right sides together and line up all the edges and go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch seam. And we're kind of just grabbing the next one, doing like a chain piecing. Get it lined up good. And you can pin these if that makes it easier. And one more. And so I've got those sewn. And I'm going to cut those apart. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to put them back on the design board so that I'm getting the right pieces together. We don't want to have to tear anything out. Okay, so I just set them right back on the design board, and we'll pick up the next row and add it to it. Okay, so we've got those all sewn together. I'm going to clip my threads between them. And we're going to go press this, and then we'll sew the other pieces together. Okay, so with the pressing here, I've got solid pieces of fabric here, so I'm going to press my seam towards that direction. It's going to lay a little bit flatter since there's no seams on this side. And then in the middle row, I'm going to press towards this solid piece, and on the top outer, we're going to press out. And also what that will do is make it so that our seams nest together, and they'll be easier to line up when we sew our block together. So I'll just move these. And I am going to set my seam each time and then kind of finger press it back so I don't have any bumps in there. Okay, so that row is done. And this row, I'm going to put that gold on top because that is our center and we want to press towards that direction. Okay, and press this last. Okay, and then we'll lay them back out. Make sure we got them lined up the right way. And then we're going to join these two here and these two, and then we'll do a final press and our block will be done. So I'm going to head on over to the sewing machine. Okay, I'm going to put these right sides together. And again, you can pin if you'd like, and I'm just going to kind of make sure that these seams kind of butt up to each other. They nest in there, and same with that side. And then I'm going to line up my edge and just kind of hold that in place and then start sewing 1/4 inch away. Okay, and then once I know that that one's stitched down, then I'm going to line up this edge just to make sure they stay where they're supposed to be. Get my seams nested. Okay, and so we've got those two joined, and we just got one more. I'm just going to kind of do a finger press, and we're going to add this one. Same thing, right sides together, nest those seams, get that lined up, and we'll start stitching. Okay, and then once I know that that one's secured, I'm lining the next one up. And get this last corner in place. Okay, and then we'll give that a press, and then that's the inside of our block, and now we're going to work on the little border that goes around it. Okay, and to do that, we're just going to take our squares and we're going to line them up so that we're just going to kind of chain piece, and we're going to stitch the blue to the green until we have our little stacks all done. So I'm going to just sew those 1/4 inch. And I think my bobbin's getting ready to run out, so we'll try that again. There we go. And you can pin them. I just line them up. Okay, and we get them all sewed together in pairs. I'm probably just going to leave them attached just like this, and we're going to take them over. And I'm going to press these open just because there's lots of seams then going to be along the border of our block, and that will just help it lay a little bit flatter when I go to put it together. So let's go do some pressing. Okay, since I'm at the pressing board, I'm going to go ahead and press our block here since we've added those 2 rows onto the center, and now we have a completed 9 patch. All right, so first I'm going to set my seam, and then I'm going to finger press it so the seam is going the direction I want it to. And here I'm just pressing away from the center. And put my iron right on there. Okay, and then our block is nicely pressed, and we'll just set that out of the way for now. And we'll come back here. And what I'm going to do on these is I'm going to kind of press them to one side first. And I'm going to do that whole strip and then flip them over and separate them, and then go ahead and press that seam open. I'm just going to go ahead and complete that with all of those and cut them apart, and we'll get them lined up ready to sew into rows. Now we're going to sew our 2 patch blocks into 2 rows that have 3 sets and 2 rows that have 4 sets. So I'm just going to line these up and stitch on that. And then I'm kind of going to do a leapfrog here. I'm going to put another pair in and stitch that. And then I'm going to cut apart this one back here and open it up and continue adding to this until I get my 3 sets on there. That just helps me not get confused, to make sure that I haven't sewn too many together. It's just, I'm very visual, so I like to see it exactly how it's supposed to be. And we're just going to keep going until we have that done. And then clip that one and add this one on. Okay, so I know that those are my 2 sets of 3, and then I'm going to start with a new pair. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I have the 4 different rows completed. Okay, we've got our little row all stitched together and our seams are pressed open. And I'm going to go ahead and start on one side of my block. And again, you can pin this if you want, because there are a few seams that we want to line up as well as the edges here. But I'm going to go ahead and try it without pins. And I'm just going to line up my first 2 points and start with that. Then I'm going to find the next 2 and just kind of hold that in place. And go until I get that one caught. And then we're going to match up this one. And sew that. And then then do this final piece here, get that little edge matched up. Okay, and then when we flip that back, looks like our points matched up pretty good. Again, it's helpful to pin it. I kind of hold my fingers in place and have them act as the pins, but it's totally a personal preference. So I'm going to go ahead while we're here and add the next side. And just doing that same kind of thing. So I'm going to line up my 2 starting corners. Get it started. And then find my first intersection here and hold everything in place. Okay, and get the next one lined up. And then lastly, that section. Okay, and then that one's added on. We can kind of check it. That looks pretty good. I'm totally okay with that. And so now let's go ahead and give that a press. I'm just going to leave that seam just like I sewed it there and go ahead and do a little heat set. Press that flat. And then when I turn this over, it kind of wants to go where the seam is going to be facing the block. And I think that's going to be, I'm going to go with that just because there's all these little points here. And I like to press my seams so that they're going to the side, they're going to lay against the side that has the flattest piece, or the piece with not as many seams in it. So I'm just going to finger press that and feel and make sure I have everything where I want it to be, and then give that a press. And you can use steam if you want. I just have a dry iron. Okay, and then let's go ahead with this side. We're just going to kind of set that seam and then flip it and then do a finger press. I like to push it all in the direction that I want that seam to go, and I can feel with my fingers that it's totally flat. I don't have any little folds here. It's open as far as it'll go. And then I'll just put my iron right on that. Okay. And so it looks pretty good. We just have the top and bottom borders to add on, and then our block will be completed. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, we're ready to add the longer borders, and so now we have a few more places where we need to line those seams up, and I'm going to go ahead and try to do it without pins, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to line up my edges first and get that started. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure this one lines up and hold it there. Okay, and then come to my next intersection and make sure those look like they're going to line up. And this one here looks good. And then our last one down here. Okay, and so that one's on, and we can do a check. That looks pretty good and looks good. So then we'll add the last one and then do a press just like we did, where we're going to press that towards our block, and that's going to look really nice when we're done. So let's finish sewing that last one on and give it a press.